JK Rowling is in the hot seat yet again for weighing in on transgender issues.
We have a crazy update in the JK Rowling story. She tweeted out, "Last Friday, my family's address was posted on Twitter by 3 activist actors who took pictures of themselves in front of our house, carefully positioning themselves to ensure that our address was visible."
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Merry almost Christmas. This is my first video back since doing the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which is obviously such a huge deal that it'd be wrong to not give it an honorable mention in this video. So it was a great experience. It was a 3-hour long conversation with Joe, who is, in my opinion, a really great guy. It was kind of a long time coming. Joe and I have followed each other and kind of touched base for years. And so it was great to finally sit down, do an episode, and I highly suggest watching it. I feel like it shows me in a light that maybe a lot of people are not used to. That's a lot of the feedback I'm getting from my own supporters, that it's so rare to see me kind of sit for 3 hours and talk about everything. Like, we left no stone unturned. So it's available for free on Spotify right now. And yeah, I can't believe I've been in Texas for 3 months and I've already done 2 podcasts with Joe Rogan. What exactly is happening? But on to today's topic, JK Rowling and the escalating level of hate, harassment, and cancellation that's being aimed at her. At this point, it seems like a semi-annual holiday for trans activists to just drag the ever-living out of JK Rowling. It's almost a pastime. My last video talking about Rowling was, I believe, over a year ago. And if you're out of the loop, which you're probably not, she receives a lot of hate from trans activists and the woke mob because of several of her takes on certain trans issues. We're at the point where she's being doxxed. Activists are showing up at her house, showing her address. She's being canceled from her own art, which is actually quite rare because, I mean, when I see people getting canceled, like famous celebrities or creators of movies or books, whatever, their art kind of gets canceled along with them. But for her, it's almost as if the franchise is going along without her and trying to erase the fact that she was ever part of it, despite the fact that she birthed it. She is the mother of Harry Potter. There's a huge Harry Potter reunion happening in January where the cast and crew of the 8-part film series are going to come together and, I don't know, talk on camera. Like, I don't really know what they're doing. But long story short, they did not invite Rowling, which is insane. How do you not invite the person who birthed this entire universe, who gave all these actors the ability to never have to worry about money a day in their life, who made them all famous, gave them all amazing careers? I think it's despicable personally. I mean, some of these actors have even deliberately thrown her under the bus, distancing themselves from her. How do you distance yourself from the woman who made you? I've defended Rowling better as a random tranny on the internet who owes her nothing than these actors who owe her everything. This is a saga that's traced back a few years now at this point. So if you need to catch up, I suggest just watching my other videos on Rowling. Just search her name on my channel. But this time, currently, she's being attacked and dragged by the mob because of her take on a recent policy in her home country of Scotland. There's a new policy there which allows biologically male rapists to be recorded by the police as women if they choose to identify as a woman, tell police they are a woman. It's a ludicrous policy that anyone with a shred of common sense or decency would oppose, but we're dealing with a mob of people who don't have either of those things. I mean, imagine being a woman who is raped by a man, and on their say-so, they get to be recorded as a woman by the police. But what makes it really egregious, in my opinion, is that the legal definition of rape in Scotland is non-consensual penetration by male anatomy. So by recording them as a woman, you are essentially contradicting the fact that there was even a rape that occurred. You're erasing what happened. Not to mention that in several countries, the US included, there are biologically male rapists that are put in women's prisons simply on the basis of them saying that they identify as women. So it's really not a stretch to think that this could happen in Scotland based on this new policy. In fact, I'm almost completely certain that it will. So these very tragic looking trans activists showed up at Rowling's home, posed for pictures in front of her home, making sure that her address was visible. Obviously, it's censored out here. In response, Rowling said, "Last Friday, my family's address was posted on Twitter by 3 activist actors who took pictures of themselves in front of our house, carefully positioning themselves to ensure that our address was visible." It's important to note that this occurred at the height, in the midst of the dragging of Rowling on social media, the semi-annual holiday, like I said. So keep in mind, it's like this is occurring simultaneously with death threats, with an insane amount of hate, and you're just escalating it, saying, hey, while everyone's pissed off at Rowling, here's her address. Imagine thinking you're the good guys when you do that. Also, imagine being these people, these clowns, and really like feeling like you're being personally addressed when Rowling is speaking out against a policy having to do with rapists. If you're hearing someone talk about and you're offended. Why? Like, imagine waking up in the morning, dressing up as a clown, going to a woman's house, doxing her, all for the sin of having a different opinion than you. Check out the young turd's take on Rowling.
JK Rowling is in the hot seat yet again for weighing in on transgender issues, this time in the context of and how some countries have decided to honor the gender identity of people who are transgendered.
Wrong. We're 19 seconds into the video and you've already told a lie. They don't just honor the gender identity of trans people. This is a lie. It is a policy that affects all people. In fact, you can almost take trans out of it because statistically, likely the people that actually are committing are not going to be trans people. Like, is that what y'all want to hear, the activists? Because that's the truth. Trans people statistically don't commit these crimes. However, people who can and will take advantage of this policy absolutely will.
But she has decided to focus on the fact that some countries, again, have decided to honor the gender identity of individuals who might identify as something other than what they were born as. So, you know, if you're born as a man but identify as a woman, there are situations in which the policies will respect that, like in Scotland, for instance.
As a survivor of rape myself, and I hate invoking that, I do it very rarely when it's appropriate. And maybe you have to go through it to really understand what I'm talking about here, but nevertheless, say I went to the police, reported the man who raped me, and based on his say-so, he gets to say, I'm a woman. They log him as a woman and then potentially put him in a woman's prison. That is disgusting. Like, it's so ludicrous and insulting on a level that I probably couldn't even articulate. Like, that you can just take that narrative of a woman being taken advantage of by a man and the police say, well, actually it was a woman. No, it wasn't. What happened happened. You don't get to erase it to be politically correct.
So the paranoia is in fact stemming from a recent law in Scotland, which allows trans people to self-identify as male or female in the Scottish census, even if it differs from their gender at birth.
The point is, the person does not have to be trans at all in the situation. In fact, statistically, they're not going to be. Does this person in Washington who was placed in a women's prison after being convicted of rape really seem like a trans woman to you? Anyways, I'm literally gonna pop a blood vessel in my brain watching any more of this video, so we're gonna cut it from right there. I just wanted to show you how these people gaslight you, and when they don't have an actual rebuttal, they just pretend it's not happening. They just pretend it's not an actual issue and that you're crazy for thinking it's an issue. So I think that people have this thing where if someone has enough money or fame or glory or whatever, that like nothing affects them. And when I think about all the people that Rowling has given careers and given riches to, abandoning her, disavowing her. I mean, you have just a huge list of actors who threw her under the bus. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, Ivana Lynch, Eddie Redmayne, Bonnie Wright, Chris Rankin, Katie Leung. I'm sure I butchered all their names. Oh, and you have US Quidditch leagues, which I didn't know people really played Quidditch, which is a fictional sport in the Harry Potter franchise, changing their names to distance themselves from JK Rowling. She made the sport. Like, what the fuck? The concept of the game came out of her brain and you're like, we're gonna just pretend like that didn't happen. Like, honestly, it makes perfect sense that she wouldn't be at the Harry Potter reunion because that would be awkward as hell. Imagine even like, she wasn't invited, but I would imagine even if she was, I wouldn't blame her if she said no, because imagine sitting with all these people who the moment things got hot in the kitchen, they threw her under the bus. I'm so over it. I'm not gonna lie. I've made videos in the past where I've shown how many trans people actually do agree with her, and it's not some overwhelming consensus. I mean, I'm sitting here defending her. There are tons of people on Twitter that she will quote tweet trans people that agree with her, but that just gets canceled out because of the legions of just non-trans woke allies who, you know, their say actually matters way more than mine, even though I'm trans, right? I'm just so over it. I'm over the groupthink. I'm over the burning the witch at the stake every 6 months. And maybe I feel so strongly about this because I am such a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't know if I've ever even talked about that in the videos, but I grew up on Harry Potter. I was a very secluded, weird, sad, bullied kid, and those books got me through my childhood. They were a form of escapism for me. In those books, I entered a world where I was not that kid and made me feel so much better about my life when I was a kid. Like, they really got me through it. So to see the woman that created that dragged so publicly, and the scapegoat for doing it is my identity, trans, like, It's just disgusting to me. She tweeted recently, perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there, the best way to prove your movement isn't a threat to women is to stop stalking, harassing, and threatening us. And I think that's just a beautiful, just perfect way to word it. I will say this though, even though the level of hatred launched at her is so intense, I do think her legacy will outlive it. I think that this destructive ideology that she's battling, that I'm battling, that so many of us are battling, like it will eventually die out. It's so illogical, it's so insane, it's so hysterical that it can only eventually run itself into the ground. Granted, it will do a lot of damage before it does that, and there's a lot more damage coming, but eventually like people just have to. Maybe I'm being an optimist. I don't know. LGBT acceptance has been on the decline for the first time in years. And I don't believe it's because of individual LGBT people. I think it's because of this ideology that so many people perceive the entirety of the community to have latched onto. People are really beginning to see this rightfully as a cult, because it is a cult. People have this idea that cults or religious fanaticism only occurs in like small, concentrated ways, like on some like commune or some farm in the Midwest or something, when in reality, like what happens when a cult reaches the point where it has millions of people? I love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my second channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas. I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.